Tonight, the SRC has gazetted terms for the state and public officers. There are new terms for county executive committee members, speakers of county assemblies, members of parliament, amongst others. Now, they have removed several allowances, all aimed at reducing the cost of running government, reducing wastage and duplication. It's a good thing to reduce the cost of running government. And I hope that SRC will go the whole hog, because we all know there's a lot of wastage in government, especially in things called per diem or impress. In fact, you'll remember that impress were the subject of a corruption scandal just last week, with some public service officials being implicated in millions of shillings. Folks, it is not feasible for us to have a budget of 3.3 trillion shillings, out of which about a third is dedicated to recurrent expenditure, a huge part of which is salaries and allowances, basically what you would call remuneration. To be clear, though, we're not saying sack people or disadvantage them or make it impossible for them to work. All we're saying is, look at the wage bill again. Seal all the loopholes. I mean, we're a country that still talks about ghost workers in this day and age of technology. We're still talking about a country where in some county governments there are more drivers than there are vehicles, where you have clerks who do nothing, and not because they don't have a specific role defined for them, right? So if we're going to clean up the wage bill, then let the broom sweep far and wide. For Parliament, for instance, does it make sense to pay a parliamentarian a salary and still pay them allowances for doing the same job for which they earn a monthly pay? You see, the work of a parliamentarian is threefold: representation, oversight, and legislation. They're expected to carry out these three functions in Parliament while seated or even standing, either in the plenary or in the House committees. So why do we pay them again to sit in committees or plenary? Yet that is what we pay them a salary for. That's duplication. It's like me earning a salary as a news anchor and then getting a sitting allowance for every time I sit here and anchor this news bulletin. Or perhaps giving police officers a separate allowance to carry their guns, and while at it, give them another separate allowance for cocking the guns. Or a secretary in the office receiving a typing allowance. As for the car grants, parliamentarians get a 5 million shillings car grant every term of Parliament, and on top of that, a car maintenance allowance on a monthly basis. As if that's not enough, you, the taxpayers, give them a mileage allowance calculated at 90 shillings per kilometre. Tell me, which other public or state officer enjoys such privileges? Why not, for instance, give them loans, even at a lower interest rate, as happens with all other workers, both in private and public sector, to buy their own vehicles? Or, in the alternative, buy vehicles that are owned by Parliament, maintained by Parliament, that will be used by the parliamentarians, but once their term ends, the vehicles remain the property of Parliament. Listen, folks, the SRC is moving in the right direction, and that is to facilitate these officers to do their work at a rate that the Kenyan taxpayer can afford. And this is by no means a way to punish them or impoverish them. And I do hope that politics will not interfere with this, although I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Or some may make the argument that when it comes to cutting public spending, this may just be a drop in the ocean. I don't believe that. But even if it was so, isn't this the right way to go? Every drop counts. And one realizes this during a drought. Even the few drops of rain that fall are precious. So too is the Kenyan shilling, especially now during these tough economic times. Besides, these jobs are a service to the nation, and steps must be taken to restore the duty and service side of Parliament over its money and privilege. And this is just the start. That is my take tonight.